So Lee has been with NAMI here in Rochester as the educational director since March, and he wants this to be a nice discussion, question answers. If you feel compelled to ask a question while he's speaking, I think he would entertain that,
Sure.
but we'll have plenty of time for discussion.
Yeah.
So Lee Formella.
Thank you. Yeah. Who are we? Fundamentally, what do we do, I guess, and what do we have to offer for our community? I'm going to get into, out of order here, after that, a little bit more about mental health, what you can do to help, and then self-care. Most importantly, arguably, what can we do to take care of ourselves? Can't take care of anyone else until we get to take care of ourselves. So a little bit more. Basically, we're one of 600, I believe it's now 650 NAMI affiliates nationwide, all under the National Alliance of Mental Illness umbrella. There are 49 states that have a NAMI. I was asked on Saturday which one doesn't. I don't know. I don't remember. I'm sorry. Our local NAMI, though, was founded in 1986. It was founded by a couple of parents who had a child who was struggling really deeply and they didn't have anywhere to turn. And so they found the National Alliance of Mental Illness and then brought it here to our area. We are super lucky here in Southeast Minnesota in that our affiliate is the only affiliate in Minnesota with paid staff, which means that we have a lot more resources than a lot of other places do. It's a double-edged sword. We are very lucky to be employed, some of us full-time, but there's obviously a higher level of pressure there too. So we want to get out here and do things like this, talk to people, but most importantly, send them to our all of our services, which are free. So if you send anybody in, they don't need insurance, they don't need a check card, a checkbook, any of that stuff. They just need to be able to get to our door or call us. We are available virtually. Most of our services are as well. Support groups, peer support, I'll get into that, but everything is free. We want to be your resource and the community's resource in our reality for mental health, if you will. This is my favorite slide of the whole night, I promise. I think it's really important to go through. I've been doing this for 9 months now, and I've been going through everybody for about the last 6, because I think it's important to know who you're going to talk to. It's easy to say we provide free services. It's easy to say that we provide peer support, but sometimes it's easier to know who it is that you're going to say hello to on the phone. So Cass is in the top left. She is a veteran, actually. She has been through a handful of mental health issues. I don't want, but struggles in her life. I think she'd be open saying that. She is one of our peer support specialists. She's now helping with our support groups for a little bit here, and she's actually starting our first ever peer-to-peer class, which is for people living with a mental health condition to teach other people how they got to a point of recovery, or at least doing much better than they had been doing in the past. So Ray is actually the other person who's going to be teaching that class with Cass. Ray is also a peer support specialist and works with our volunteers. Ray, it's kind of fun having her here because I always use Ray as an example when I'm out in public, and so she's never heard this, but Ray is kind of my sister at work. And we've kind of followed the same path. So you might look at her and I and think they're nothing alike. Well, that's not true at all. Basically, when I moved here last July, we were both volunteers. I think safe to say not doing the best in the world of all time. You were probably doing better than I was by then, but getting restarted. Well, by about March, I was employed there, and a couple months later, Ray was an interim volunteer coordinator at that time. And the power of NAMI is that I never thought I could stand up here like 2 times in 3 days and go and do social media and a whole bunch of other marketing and other things in the middle. And Ray, who wanted to start as interim volunteer manager and nothing else, now has her hands in about 6 or 7 different things involved with NAMI. It provides us confidence. It provides us community. It provides us a sense of belonging. It's a place where her and I have been empowered when that hasn't, at least for me, been the case in the past. So that's what NAMI does for us, but that's why I think everyone on this screen feels that same, not pressure, but duty to provide that back, to give back to the, pass the buck on, if you're built to the next one. So quickly then, the other 2 people down here in the middle, Nick Mann, he's right in the middle. He's one of our certified peer support specialists, as well as a support group facilitator. And then Myrna, is in charge of she's running our underrepresented communities program. So she's basically starting a program from nothing and building it on her own. And she's already gotten some walking groups started. She's got a lot of resources in Spanish, and we're hoping to have a couple like full on mental health discussions or groups, if you will, in the area, all held in Spanish shortly, as well as I know she's doing a lot in the education system, also working with them to bring some more resources in Spanish to our local schools. Christina over here on the right is one of the sweetest women you'll ever meet. She's been, I think she just said tonight, been with NAMI for 4 years, volunteering before that. Christina has the best boundaries of anyone I've met, which is like the highest compliment if you know me. I wish I had as good of boundaries as she does. She takes care of herself so that she can go help everyone else. And she just, her same thing, if you read her story, I believe it's on our website, just come from a place of, like many of us, where we didn't really know where we were going to be, to a place of absolutely knowing exactly where we want to be every day and what we want to do. Raj and Maggie in the bottom left, they go together. They've been volunteering and or helping out at NAMI one way or the other for 25 years, since the year 2000. Raj is our fairy godfather. If we need anything, we call him and he gets it done. How? I don't know. Half the time it just happens and it's done. So he is the reason, those two, I don't mean to leave out Maggie, those two are the reason NAMI is still here. That NAMI has been as successful as it's been for 25 years. They're truly the reason. Jen in the top right, she's like my mom at work. If you have a sister, you gotta have a mom. She's like my mom at work. She's, I mean, just like the sweetest lady, and except for when you get her a little frustrated, then she can, it's really fun to see her get mad. But I don't think she'll get upset. She lost a son to mental illness. And so just when you look up there, and I'll get to her ED in a second, every single one of us has been affected by it. To bury the lead, I live with bipolar disorder, generalized anxiety, and complex PTSD. Like I said, I kind of make it sound better, but 2 years ago, I didn't really leave the house until I started doing this for NAMI. And the first one of these, I am shaking and sweating. You just can't really see it too much, and will be when I get home. My first one, I cried through the whole thing. I mean, I couldn't get 2 words out. So I'm so happy to have found NAMI, because I wouldn't be here without them. I mean, I would not be standing in front of you without them, there's no question. And last but not least, our executive director, she just got here, started in November. We are very lucky. She is actually knows how to run a nonprofit, which you need. You can't just have a whole bunch of people who really care about helping people. You have to have somebody who can put it all together. So we are happy to have her. She was actually just at our board meeting, and I felt kind of bad, but it was fun. Oh, there's me. I just kind of leave this one up yet because those are my nephews. Those are my reason. They're the reason I'm here. I'll kind of get into more of my story later, but when I was struggling the most after they were born, my sister called me one day and was like, do you want to have the relationship with them that you want? And somehow, some reason, that changed my mind. And so I always give them credit, because they're a major reason why I'm still here. And that's me speaking. I always like to share this at University of Wisconsin, which is actually where I graduated. I begged my way through my last 2 classes. I did not finish my last paper. I did not do anything with that degree. So being invited back to talk to them a second time was one of the greatest honors I've ever had, and being able to speak at my alma mater. And so I like to throw that up there. It's kind of fun. So here's where we get to the most important parts, though. 46% is the number of people who in their lifetime will live with a mental health condition. Unfortunately, 56% of those people will not get help. What makes those 2 numbers even worse is the last one. The 60% represents the number of youth and young adults who will not go get the help that they need after being either diagnosed or suffering their own mental health conditions. You got to put those up, because why aren't they getting help? It all works back. If the adults aren't getting the help, if they aren't talking about it, if they're not starting it, then why would the kids? Where would the kids hear about it? A 14 and 13-year-old can't take themselves. I mean, they could, and some of them do, and they're stronger than the rest of us. But if they don't have them in them, where are they getting that leadership? Where are they getting that idea from? So we have to start talking. It's also the easiest thing to do as far as what we can do to help. Vulnerability breeds vulnerability. I'll get into this a lot more later, but this is why I do what I do. I did not get diagnosed until I was 33 years old. I had never talked to anybody who disclosed that they lived with bipolar disorder. I had no idea what it was. I thought, to be honest, going back to when I was in college, it was something completely different than what I lived with. It wasn't, we just didn't have as much information and knowledge, right? So that being said, we can't do anything about that then. The only thing we can do is going forward. And so that's not to say you have to open up with your deepest, darkest secret. But if you see someone struggling, you go, hey, I'm having a little bit of a tough day. How about you? That's a lot different start than, are you good? I'm good. That's good. That's good. We're good. Leave the door open. And you can start by cracking that door yourself. And the more we do that, the more these numbers are going to come down. Most mental health conditions are treatable, curable, happen, and you can move forward from that with learning a lot from it and never really being affected by it again. That will not be true if you don't get help. And so it just all works on down the line. Quickly, this is what I'll put his picture up, Kevin Hines, it's an example of what one person can do. Kevin is one of 5 people to have jumped off the Golden Gate Bridge, to have survived, and to have walked away to talk about it. He made it his life's mission after that to get a net along the entirety of the Golden Gate Bridge, which as of last year, I believe it was, or maybe the year before, is a reality. Some people might, say, well, there's other places. Well, there are. But when you take away the most well-known, one of the most accessible, you're saving lives. There's just absolutely no question that he saved a ton of lives by turning his pain into purpose. And I think NAMI themselves likes to say, we try and turn our pain into a passion and passion into purpose. And you don't have to go through what I've been through or what Ray's been through or what Kevin has been through to join that cause, to just join in that conversation and get it started. Any questions so far, comments, thoughts?
They all hear you, they're all doing okay on screen.
Are we good on Zoom?
Great.
I hear no objections. All right, we'll get into, this is probably one of the most important ideas that we can talk about, because when it comes to mental health and mental illness, I think a lot of people don't want to talk about it because it's confusing. I'm going to try and make it slightly less confusing, okay? Everyone has mental health. Every single person has mental health. You have a brain, your brain is mental. You have brain health, you have mental health. Everybody does. We make mental health scary because we lump mental illness in with it, we lump psychosis in with it, we lump all of these other things in with it that are part of mental health, but not your health. If you go, so one of the things I like, and I'll make fun of my dad a handful of times throughout this because he's not here and I get to. Basically, you go in once a year or more for a checkup on your body, right? And everybody does? Does everybody go in once a year to get their brain checked? No. Yeah, well, she brings a brain with her. I like that. I respect a lot. But where you go and you have it looked over. And the difference is we can't see it. So I'm going to back up. I'll get back to that. I'm sorry. So fundamentally, everyone has mental health. The really important thing to remember when you're talking about the two different ones, mental illness is something that affects you on a daily basis. It affects your life to the point that it either affects your work, it can affect your relationships, it can affect your day-to-day life. And when it comes to certain serious mental illnesses, every part of every day of your life. And like I said before, when it comes to mental illnesses, some of them are curable. Some people will have anxiety, maybe not curable, but very well treatable. You may never really realize that you have it again, or maybe you got to go back in a couple of times throughout the rest of your life and get some reminders, right? Whereas the serious mental illness is the ones that people are afraid to talk about, like bipolar. Well, you know one person now, so don't be too afraid. I'm okay, I promise. People are afraid to talk to them because they get these bad stigmas. Everybody thinks so negatively about them. But we have to extricate the two. We have to be able to talk about the two and kind of know what we're talking about, at least on a base level. Yeah, my dad, my least favorite thing to do, and I think I've almost broken him out of this, is when he would be like, "Oh, yeah, well, you know, your mental health, it's yeah, it's okay, right? Dad, it's bipolar. It's generalized anxiety. It's a mental illness, and that's okay. Because then I can turn around and talk to him about his mental health, which isn't always ideal. And that's an important thing. I actually, even though I live with a mental illness, not so much the last couple of weeks, but usually have good mental health, even living with a mental illness. A lot of people who don't have mental illness don't have very good mental health because they're afraid of it. They're afraid to talk about it, and they don't get that little bit of help sometimes, and it's all it takes that it needs. Because they're too, I think, because I live with one, so I can't speak for the neurotypical folks out there, but I think a lot of times they don't want to hear that they live with a mental illness. They don't want to hear that they live with anxiety or depression or have a label to it or take a medication for it. When in reality, I would not be here standing in front of you today if I did not have a medication. And I'm not saying doing this job, I'm saying if I did not get medicated when I did, I probably would not be standing anywhere today. That's the difference. That's why these two things go together, but we need to be able to talk about them separately and no. Because if somebody comes up to me and says, "Hey, your mental health, are you, is that doing okay? Are you doing okay, buddy?" No, it's different. If I'm having a really bad day, it's a mental illness, there needs to be another step, and we need to take another step. Got a little bit.
Can I
lost
just
in that.
interject one thing?
Please.
I think you can hear me. What Lee and I talked about when we first met was that it's no different than a physical illness. That, people don't ignore heart disease or diabetes or taking care of themselves, because if they do, they get into a lot of trouble. And you wouldn't tell someone with diabetes, just buck up and don't take your insulin. You're okay, just eat what you want. And it's the same thing. It's understanding the disease and then doing something about it. And I think if people hear that analogy, it's not quite so scary either.
Oh, absolutely. I think, and you would never second guess if a doctor told you to take medication for diabetes, right?
Right.
If they told you have to take this medication to stay alive, you would. I don't know why we look at that differently with mental health, other than you can't see a test. There's no numbers. And so people don't want to believe it. So the difference, and we were talking about this the other day, when it comes to the diabetes, is probably you'll hear that the most as a comparison for bipolar disorder. Because highs and lows, sometimes you got to take medication to bring it back down. Sometimes you got to take medication to bring it back up, right? The difference is I don't have a gauge. I don't have a blood level reading. I don't have an alert that can be sent to my doctor, to my parents, to myself to say that I need to do that. It all has to come from self-awareness and getting help. Going in, understanding, learning, and supporting other people to understand and learn as well is the only way. So, but people do push back because they can't see it. But I will tell you, if I don't know if you, Kathy, watched the video, she can send them out, but I made a video when we went to the NAMI Minnesota conference. I forgot my medication on that trip. It was awful. By noon the next day, I had sweat through everything. I felt so uncomfortable, and Ray can attest, I usually feel pretty comfortable around you guys, like quite. And it was a really, really bad afternoon. Well, I took a video of myself before I took my medication and another one 45 minutes later. There's such a stark difference in just how I'm talking, how I'm breathing, how my affect is, and you can just see the comfort after that medication. That is not a placebo effect, I can promise you. I wish it was, my goodness. It'd be a lot better, but so like, just to bring it all the background, they go together, but they're different. And we have to know the differences and where they're coming. And the biggest reason is the stigma. There shouldn't be a stigma around mental health to begin with. It's health. So if anybody, that's the one thing you can do for me. If you go out and you hear somebody talking about how mental health is different or somehow, it isn't. If you if you break your ankle, you're going to go in. Well, sometimes somebody passes away, you lose a job, you lose a relationship, you lose whatever, your brain can break. And it's no different than taking a little medication and putting a brace on your ankle than it is to go in for 2 months, 6 weeks, life, for therapy. Some people need physical therapy on their back forever. I need physical therapy on my brain forever. I'll be going until I die. And I'm okay with that. I'm proud of that and I'm happy about it. So I'm going to be a better person for it. Unfortunately, there's still a stigma around it. A heavy stigma. And I mean, just the other day, the woman who was the president of the club I talked to, bless her heart, came up and shared something very vulnerable. We both cried. It was beautiful. And then she tiptoed around medication. Well, and then I have taken medication. We're so close. It's everything. There's a stigma that comes with all of it. Quickly, when I moved here, this was last July, I volunteered for a while first. I graduated from UW, I've always been employed. It's not the prettiest resume in the world, but there's a resume, I have jobs. I've never applied for jobs in a new city or when I was leaving a job and never gotten a call back before. Before the last 3 years, I've never written for a major international website. I've never gotten paid to write before, and I've never started my own website and interviewed 2-star generals and other people about their bipolar disorder. Well, this time I had, and I put out 20 resumes when I got to Rochester. I did not get one call back because every one of those volunteer events had bipolar in it. So even though my resume had never been better, I had zero opportunity to get a job until, thank goodness, NAMI, I backed my way into NAMI for volunteering. But other than that, I mean, I'd still probably be bartending, you know, just because the bipolar, the anxiety, everything, I drank, I did everything, you know, I did nothing that was beneficial for myself. I couldn't. I had no capability of doing anything for 15 years. The minute that changed, I started improving myself. Yet, the only thing employers saw were those previous 15 years. And that one name on there that really has no relevancy other than, I would argue, shows how hard I work, how hard I try, how much I'm not ever willing to give up, and how quickly I can learn things and, well, you know what I mean? That's not what people see. So my goal, maybe someday, is to walk in a room and say I live with bipolar disorder and not have to take 10 minutes explaining it. Not have to explain why I can't do certain things that other people can, and on and down the line. What would make me feel comfortable, things like that. That's my goal someday. I have small goals. Please.
Part of, because the general public just doesn't understand what it is. And so there's a fear of what you don't know.
Mhm.
And even when it happens to you, you're afraid of what you don't know. Who can I go to for information? I'm sorry.
You need that to be recorded. You don't have to put it on your, you can just talk into that.
Okay. And so you get to that, you find that square, and in my own case, it was with my primary care,
Mhm.
and I had the discussion with them because I had visualized doing away with myself. And it set up a red flag in my head because usually visualization was something I used to get to the end of a tense, high pressure situation to make sure it happened. You would visualize the steps that you'd get to that. And when I visualized that, it was like not good. And I had the discussion with my doctor, and I will say it was Dale Roy. Or Roy Dale, I'm sorry, who was a member here, I think, for a while, right? And we had the discussion about faith. I mean, and so that was something hard for me to go. I said, you know, I'm a person of faith, and ordinarily I would look to my faith to get me through something like this. And so I didn't want to take the medication, right? It's like, that seems like a crutch to me. And he explained, well, maybe you're not looking at this right, Dan. Maybe God is giving that as something to help get you through this. And so I would encourage you to try this. And I'll get to the end quick because I don't want to take.
No, you're good.
But
It's very valuable.
so I went on medication and unfortunately, I went completely to the other end of the spectrum. It's
mhm.
like, I feel great. There's nothing wrong going on. And I asked to be taken off early and he said, no, you really need to go through the
Yeah,
whole cycle. And I ended up weaning myself off anyway. But at least now I had the knowledge of the spectrum, right? I knew where
yeah.
the flashing red lights and the alarms were. And then I also knew where, hey, I don't want to be over there either, because you might walk in front of a train just to see if you could get past it. But anyway,
Yeah.
I think, general lack of knowledge has, and you're overcoming that just like by you being here.
Well, thank you. Well, I think you made multiple really good points there. First and foremost, yes, the community, as far as the knowledge, like I said, I mean, that's kind of why I started my social media stuff that I did, was just trying to find people who could teach me more and then try and share the information of what it's actually like to live with it. Because I think it scares people less once you actually know what it's like, because it is just misunderstanding. It's misinformation, but more a lack of information. I mean, I could ask if there's not enough people here. Schizophrenia and bipolar, what's your first reaction?
My first reaction is that. Pass it around. I don't have enough information about the spectrum of bipolar, other than being in the room when my daughter was diagnosed with bipolar 2.
Okay.
In a combination with several other acronyms, which I would love to share later with you or openly here.
Sure.
But I see you as a child of God, and I just am so grateful that I can't give you a reaction other than just loving you.
Well, you've been through it, so you're not the one. I appreciate you, no, for sure. But you've been through it, so but either way, I appreciate that. But a lot of times, I mean, if you're in a bigger group, and I've seen it done, you'll get erratic, violent, angry, the list goes on, right? Overly emotional, I am, it's fine. But like, the list goes on and on. When in reality, we are much more likely to be the victims of violence than to perpetrate it. By like a factor of 10. You just don't see those stories in the newspaper because it doesn't sell very well when it says bipolar person taken advantage of by this. It sells a lot better when they say this person went on a rampage, oh, and he had bipolar. Oh, and he had mental health issues. So no, I forgot where I was going with that.
It's sensationalized.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
It gets blown out of proportion.
But the learning aspect, that's where I was going. So the more people know, the more we actually educate people. And that's where I always challenge the same people, when I see them and I'm out in public, is if you hear something, challenge it. If you hear somebody call the weather bipolar, call them out on it. The weather, in fact, is not. It's a little up and down. It's really miserable right now, but it's not bipolar. Go ahead.
Until my daughter was in the same room with me and we had a professional identifying bipolar 2 to her, my only reflection of bipolar was the very talented football player at the University of Nebraska who went violent and labeled bipolar, and then given lithium. And if he didn't stay compliant with lithium, he was violent. If he did take his lithium or a combination of other behaviors, he was so depressed that he went the other way. And I'm saying these words, the other way or this way and that, because I guess the only answer is to find a balance, whether with medication or a combination of medication and behavior and pattern and support and love and understanding.
All of it.
I thank you for letting me just add that.
Of course, yes, absolutely. That's why, like I said, the conversations are the best part. And I mean, what you said, I think is really important. Faith can be a really strong tool. A lot of things can be a really strong tool. It can do everything, but in some cases, truly solve the issue. Faith can be a very big part of my life, but if I don't take my medication and I don't go to therapy and I don't do all the other things that I need to do, it's not going to work. And so I think that I love that you pointed that out, that your doctor who he went here at least or did, pointed that out to you. That is an additional tool, but a lot of times, again, and that's why I probably tell everybody when I get the opportunity, I take medication, I take it every day, I will be taking it forever, and same thing with therapy. Because those are the most important things to destigmatize, especially for men and for anything anything where, when you're talking mental illness. Because medication is so imperative for so many people. But yeah, anything else on those? Otherwise, I'm going to jump in and get a little bit more about what we do at NAMI, and then we can have some more fun with mental illness and self-care and such.
I taught LPNs,
What was that?
practical nurses that took their license and became LPNs. And we had an outstanding student. He was outstanding and he graduated from a college. And but we had many people that took the college classes and then weren't able to find their role over there. Anyway, somehow he did not take his medication. We're all about, medications throughout the program, but and he was just running through the neighborhood, talking oddly. So that was my first real experience. Well, plus we did have speakers from NAMI to our program, but that was made it very real for my coworker and myself. I don't think he ever worked as a nurse, but he was successful in other work. So, that was good. They diagnosed him with schizophrenia.
Well, and he's doing great. I mean, honestly, if he found another role in another place and somewhere that fits for him, that's incredible.
Obviously, he was searching.
Yeah.
He would have been good.
Well,
Somehow, just at graduation point.
but sometimes, I mean, there's a lot of jobs I think I could be good at that I know I can't do. I mean, seriously, like there's too high level stress. Yeah, I mean, I think I'd make a good lawyer. What do you think, Ray? There's no way in heck I could go back and do all this. Too much. And I mean, not that I want to, but I mean, there's a lot of things that when it comes to, and that's where talking about it helps. That's where educating yourself can help. Because if you come along or run along somebody who is living with schizophrenia or severe bipolar and they're hard on themselves because they're, like I was, a server or a bartender at 35 years old or whatever. Well, when I was talking to my dad the other night, he reminded me, he's like, yeah, but you were employed and I was afraid you weren't going to be employed like 90% of the time and you were employed 100% of the time. It's different levels. I'd like to say, and I will get finished, remind me to talk about NAMI at some point. But like, I like to say we make this look good. And I'm not saying like how we actually look, but being out in public, presenting, helping other people, doing all of those things. I am very lucky. And I've been taking it somewhat for granted. I thought I was doing better than I was. We'll get to some crisis resources, but let's say I went to my therapist and was reminded about them. It's been a bad couple of weeks, but here, I'm still here, standing in front of you doing this. Because I can pull it together. I liked what you started off here. Actually, this comes together really well. If we could all go out in public, being ourselves, feeling comfortable being ourselves. Feeling comfortable having a bad day, having a good day, having a whatever day, being in grief, in whatever, everyone else would be doing better. The community and the world would be a better place if we could all be ourselves. If we all didn't feel pressure to show up as somebody else. If people didn't feel pressure to show up as a better version of themselves at all times. And to always extend themselves too much and all those other things, we would all be in a much better place. So, that being said though, if you come across somebody who lives with bipolar disorder, and I don't want to pick on you, but and I don't know your daughter, right? But let's say your daughter was doing much better than me, right? I have no idea, or whichever way. That has no bearing on how my parents should think about me, or how my friends should think about where I'm at in life, because you cannot compare them. You can't compare one person with the next. You can't compare one day with the next day. Then tomorrow can be the worst day I've had. This morning was. You can't compare one morning with a night when you live with a mental illness. So it's just really all about the understanding, the showing up for everybody else, and yeah, I don't even know where we started there, but
Well, it's that unconditional love. I mean, of
Yeah.
people that we really care
Mhm.
about. Like you said, people don't stop caring about you because you're sick. We don't quit loving people because they have physical illness. And we hope that be consistent.
you would hope. But that's all we can fight for.
But
You
it's
know,
the
that's what
fear.
we're out here.
It's the fear and the unknown.
It's the fear and the unknowns. It is, and people don't know what to say. I mean, I took the slide out of here, but communication, people don't know what to say, right? Well, how are you? Is there anything I can do for you? Or more importantly, I'm here.
I'm concerned about you.
Just, I'm here. I'm here. You're having a bad day, I'm here. You're having the worst day you've ever had, I'm here. You don't want me here? Well, I'm here if you want me, otherwise then I'll be back. But I'll go twiddle my thumbs for a while. I'm here. Those are the most important things you can say. You don't know somebody, you see them talking to somebody in the street, you think they're having a really hard time. Just remember you're the weird one. Because if they're talking to somebody who's not there, they're there in their eyes. They're not talking to no one just to make you feel uncomfortable. You're going to make them feel more uncomfortable if you point out that that person is not there. You know, we're doing a lot of these things for ourselves. So I guess, like you said, it's the fear. Well, are you more afraid of the person who's in the hospital? Are you more afraid than the person who is living with that condition? Probably not. Try and get over your own fear. Learn, educate yourself, ask questions of the person. One quick example. If I walk into a room and I go, well, randomly, which doesn't always happen like this, but I'm Lee, I live with bipolar disorder. If you go, oh, I'm walking this way. If you go, oh no, I'm so sorry, I might give you a chance. But if you go, oh, do you mind if I ask you a couple questions? Or, oh, that's interesting. Actually, I had a friend like that, or who lived with bipolar disorder. You know, he did really well, or whatever. You know, do you mind? How are you doing? Is there anything I can do? Genuine, authentic presence and questions. Those are the two things that will get you through to anyone at any time. And keep in mind, we don't have a lot of superpowers, those of us with severe mental illnesses, but we have one. I know when you are lying now. I know before you started to lie. I know if you're inauthentic before you open, probably before you even start speaking, but definitely once you do. Because I've met so few people throughout my life who have shown themselves to be 100% authentic and genuine that I have to hold back until I see enough that I can share that part of myself. Because I think for a lot of us, we've shared that part of ourselves too often, and then we do end up being the ones seeing the other side of it. So let me get through this part on NAMI, who I work for, because this is important, and then we will get back to all of the rest of any conversation you all want, and I will answer any questions. So jumping back into it quickly, how do we help? How do we help people like myself and like the people we've been talking about? One-on-one peer support. I will go to bat for our peer support forever. They're wonderful people. It's a wonderful program, no cost, no insurance. like I said, you're going in and you're talking to somebody like Ray. You're going and talking to the people who are on there before. They've been through it, they've seen the worst of it, they've figured out how to get through it, and they figured out how to get here. And so when you're walking in the door, you're not walking in somebody who's telling you what to do, telling you what to da 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 da. No, it's somebody who can listen, hear you, and understand, and then try and help. So most importantly, not most importantly, that's most important. Also important, we don't just throw people who've been through it out there. Certified peer support specialists get 96 hours of training-ish, roughly. Volunteer peer supporters get 40-ish, I think, 35 to 40. They are not, like I said, they are prepared. Yeah, it's not the easiest process in the world for a reason. People need to get through, also know how to help. So support groups, we have a bunch of different offerings of support groups. Connections is anybody who lives with a mental health condition, does not have to be diagnosed. Basically open, we like you to register for numbers, but you don't need to. You can walk in the door too. Family support group as well. That is a similar idea just for the families, which is incredibly important. A lot of times we forget about the families. The families can't be the best version of themselves or can't take care of themselves. And sometimes they can't do anything to help. And that alone can be, look at my dad for 15 years. I know how hard it is. It can be absolutely life-sucking to not be able to do anything to help. Well, that's what these support groups are for. So you can go talk to other people, you can bounce things off of them, you can get the support of them, you can learn how they've dealt with things before. These support groups are just really indispensable. Dual diagnosis is for mental health condition and substance abuse. I think they go hand in hand more than people talk about. Those groups are incredibly important. I would say arguably probably over 75% or more people who live with the substance abuse probably live with the mental illness. I don't think that's a stretch. I drank and gambled and did a bevy of other drugs to get my brain to stop for like 4 hours so I could sleep. It wasn't because I was addicted to alcohol. In fact, I really didn't like it and would take 2 or 3 days off at a time, but there got a point where my brain couldn't, I had to sleep. I had to shut it off, and alcohol was the only way to do that. They go hand in hand. And then we have, we're happy enough, we have 4 counties and virtual as well. Education, programming, what I'm doing here, but we send out other people as well. Ending the silence is great, it's in schools. We finally have that going. We can go in middle schools and high schools, staff or parents as well. So if you know anybody in schools, please let them know, send them my way. I want to do some more of these programs. Workplace, peer-to-peer, which I already talked about. Ray is going to be starting that this week. We discussed that. And then we have custom presentations and a lot of other classes. I have a little sign up here if you want to join our newsletter. I also put a lot of our virtual classes that NAMI Minnesota has as well. They're a state organization. So between the two of us, we have quite a few different offerings. And hopefully we'll have some more family offerings here in the spring. I'm working on it. Yes, sir.
What's the youngest person that you deal with?
18. Yeah, so we are adults only when it comes to our services. We will present for our youth, you know what I mean? So we'll go in and either share stories or do the Ending the Silence, which introduces mental illness topics, introduces suicide prevention, introduces what to look for in a friend, what to look for in yourself. So that's as much as we can kind of get into on the youth level. Mostly because NAMI has always done adults, and so their programming is curated for adults and insurance and liability and on down the line. It just gets a little bit more, yeah. So then our underrepresented communities I kind of talked about earlier. So
I just mentioned, or did you just want a quick mention that you do have resources
Oh.
that explain these things?
yeah, and we'll leave as many of these here as you need, but those have all of our support groups on them, explains our peer support services, and then a handful of local crisis resources as well. Quickly, 2 of them. There we go. We do really enjoy being out and about in public, so if you ever have an event or if you're ever bored on a weekend, especially in the summer or at night, you can find us a lot of the times. I will say, please write this one down, Kathy. I expect you to bring a team to our NAMI walks, September 27th. Redeemer Lutheran Church. I'd like to see a big team get that put together. But yeah, no, that's our biggest event of the year. It is our biggest fundraising event, but it's also, we had 500 people last year. We're going to, we're hoping to have more, but a ton of community resources. It's just, it was a really powerful day between that day and AFSP has a walk the week after. So over the course of 2 weeks, you have 1,000 people out there walking for mental health, walking for suicide prevention. It's just, those can be really powerful events. Right here in Rochester, Cascade Lake, September 27th.
So you were coinciding or the weekend before or after the suicide watch walk?
Before,
Week
before, yep, AFSP, yep, SP, yep. Americans for Suicide Prevention. No, shoot. Foundation. Oh,
And there's, so there's
Yep.
would be the week later.
Yep,
on
yep.
On the 4th of October meeting.
Yep. So, all right, this slide. Yeah, this slide is really important. I'm gonna leave it up for a minute. Feel free to take a picture. Otherwise, I have more resources up here for at least CERC and the crisis line. This one I kind of warned Ray about earlier. You never know. You never know. These are really good numbers to keep on hand. This is really good information to keep on hand, especially at a place like a church. Where you might come across somebody, it's best to just know these things. If somebody's having a mental health crisis, I'll kind of let you do this and then explain my. So, some important things to remember so you can pass it along for me to the rest of the folks who aren't here. 988, 988, 988 for anything mental health crisis. 911 if you need to, or if somebody's in danger, their health or safety's in danger, call 911. But even if you do, if you call 911 for a mental health crisis, tell them it's for a mental health crisis. Immediately, right away. If there are no weapons, tell them there are no weapons. If you are safe and feel safe, tell them you are safe and feel safe. If somebody reacts negatively to a certain word, a certain demand, whatever, or reacts positively towards a different way of share as much information as you can share. We are lucky in Olmsted, at least, I think, I don't know the other counties as well, but that we have a really good crisis intervention team. We have great crisis response resources, and we have great law enforcement who's been trained in those crisis response. However, it's still important to tell them so that those are the teams they send. We want crisis response teams sent in every instance of mental health or mental illness or psychosis or any kind of issue that comes up with mental health. I can't say it enough. Just call 988, but still be very apparent. I think Ray looked like you wanted to say something. No, okay. So that's my little spiel there, and I'm going to say one more. You never know. I have very well managed mental illnesses. I had a really bad night last week, and I was not sure what I wanted to do. And I forgot, I don't want to slip here. I work here, I do this, I present this, and I forgot about this place. Because when you're in a crisis, when your brain isn't thinking clearly, when you're not thinking the way you should, you forget a lot of times. And so having other people around you or having, loved ones or whatever remind you in those moments can be super valuable. So I'm always going to tell people that from now because you just never know. All right.
Is NAMI and the crisis center, are they somehow put together or?
We work with them. We have some of our peer supports or we have support groups out there. And we offer our peer support services out there twice a week, I think, or 3 times a week.
Yeah.
Please, let Ray, this is Ray's expertise.
Here, I'll use.
Okay. Perfect.
So at CERC, Southeast Regional Crisis Center, it's called CERC for short. First of all, it is a place where you can go if you're in a crisis. It's 24/7. There's a side that has beds for adults, there's a side that has beds for 18 and under. You can stay there, or you may just go there and they may help you out, you get the resources you need to move on. They may ask for insurance, but they do not bill your insurance. So it is paid for by the county,
Yep.
by the county.
Yep.
And it covers many regional,
The 10
counties.
Yeah, 10
Yeah.
counties, I think. Yeah.
We have, 3 of our certified peer support specialists, work out at CERC. We're out there together. They're out there 3 days a week. And then additionally, one of our dual diagnosis support groups meets out there every other week.
Mhm. Yep, thanks, Ray.
So if you're not, use the mic, here's this
Yeah.
question. So if a young person, we were talking earlier about NAMI serving people 18 and above. So you're saying that there is a side for 18 and under.
Yes.
So say there was a child in crisis and they hadn't been introduced to anyone at Homestead or Mayo or Medical Center. Could they call CERC and get assistance so that they could then be referred to the appropriate resource?
Yes.
Beautiful
Yes,
question.
that'd be a good starting point and something for members of our congregation to be aware of in both directions, but particularly for you too.
Yep.
Of all of your
Mike,
phone numbers up there, can you help us isolate the number for CERC?
Yeah, but we also have a bunch of stuff here for
would
So
you
you can
strictly
take those as
call
well.
988 though?
No,
Oh, okay, we have to have a number right directly for them.
I'm just gonna hand some of these out.
Please
I can
do.
help
Yeah,
you.
thanks, Ray.
I was thought of that. Whoever it can be.
No, you go ahead, you keep taking notes, you keep going. I'll hand this out.
He's a good delegator.
You have no idea. Get up, that's up. She's great. I love her, Ray. No, but yes, and yeah. I forgot, that was somebody had a good point, but,
Oh, well.
it's a great,
Oh,
it's a great,
just
like,
referral base. to
yeah,
start.
referral price, a great starting point. I know you had said, and there's a really big hospital in town that I brought up to my therapist about saying that I maybe had thought about walking in there, and she said, did you forget about CERC? So start at CERC, start with the crisis referral. It's a lot easier to go in and out. It's a lot easier to, just navigate that process. If it's needed, the hospitals are great. I'm not saying that, but it's a better starting point if it's not an immediate life threat, I think would be. Is that the best way to put it, Ray?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, highly recommend going to CERC.
Yeah.
Over the ER. For
Yes,
mental health issues.
It's really
yes,
helpful.
yes.
And one thing I've got to share that Lee taught me when we met the first time, and that is there are wonderful peer support people in Rochester and one-on-one. Because we talked about this, we had this presentation on loneliness, and the first question from people was, where do we get a good resource, a good counselor? And it sounds like NAMI has, I mean, like you're saying, they can't advocate for any one counselor, but they know many, many excellent counselors that can really be of help. And that's crucial, because people just don't have those resources.
Well, and the best way to make connection, I mean, I tell people, it's cliche, right? But cliches work. Drink water, true. Get rest, true. Volunteering is a great way to get out and meet people. It just is. If you don't know where to socialize, if you don't know where to go, I wouldn't have met any of these people. Without it, I wouldn't have gotten out of the house if I didn't start volunteering with NAMI back in Wisconsin. It's a great starting point. Doesn't mean you have to do it with us. You can, but it's a great way of getting out there, at any level, truly. But, and that's part of this. So I'm gonna buzz through my favorite part of this because we've had such good conversations before. But I think a few of these things are really important. I think went to what Kathy had asked for before. Just kind of quickly cover self-care, because everything else is great. We need to help everybody else. We need to be available for them. But like I said at the beginning, we can't be if we're not okay for ourselves. And I think self-care has become a buzzword. So everybody wants to say, I'm good at self-care. I'm going to do self-care, this self-care, da, 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 da. It's not that easy because, here we go. Even though I'm guilty of all of these, none of these are effective self-care when you rely on one or do one too often. I promise. I sat around and watched football all day on Saturday. I kind of needed to. It's okay. I didn't the next day, and I won't be tonight. I'm here. You can't do it every single day, right? So some of these things in moderation, but unhealthy food, I ate like 1,000 calories of cookies last night. Shopping, I haven't done that, but you get the point. These things make us feel better. They make us feel better in the moment. Sometimes they make us feel better for a few hours, but it really just pushes what we need to be doing down the line. One of my favorite sayings outside of work is basically that whatever you don't want to do the most is exactly what you should do. If the last thing in the world you ever think you should do or want to do is go for a walk, that is the number one most important thing you should do. I have to take my own advice. I do. I promise you. Ray can tell you how hard I am on myself at times. I am not the best at it, but that's not a reason not to try and not to keep going. You know, just because I ate like heck the last week doesn't mean I didn't go buy my salad, buy my chicken, and buy my veggies so I can try and get back on that route this week. Did it happen today? No, I needed sleep. That came first. But you do as much of it as you can. And most importantly, though, you don't beat yourself up. It is easy. I promise. Promise. But there's no quick fix. There is no quick result to get to where you want to get to. Oh, I missed it. They got it on the screen, not up here. Dang it. But
No quick fix.
you can't get there tomorrow. What I always like to tell people is I run now. Like I like to run. In theory, I run now. It's been not as much lately, but I like to call myself a runner. When I started running, I started walking, which actually was really just me starting leaving the house during COVID. When COVID happened, it was shortly after I got diagnosed with bipolar disorder. And I didn't know who the heck I was. I didn't know anything about myself. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't know what helped. I didn't know what hurt other than drinking. I knew drinking hurt and I knew gambling hurt. Other than that, didn't really know anything else. So I didn't start by wanting to run. In fact, it was never a goal. I never thought I'd be a runner. I never thought I wanted to run. I started leaving my house and going for a little walk around the block. Turned into like 3 or 4 blocks. And then maybe a handful of months later, I started running. Like truly months and months later. Same thing. You know, if you want to drink more water, don't set your goal. Don't go out and buy one of those, I can say it in here, one of those gallon jugs and mark off the hour by the next day when you're going to have drank that much water. It's not going to work. Okay. You can try it. I'm here for you. It's just probably not going to work. But if you go tomorrow, I'm going to have 2 cups of coffee or 2 cups of water because I haven't had a cup of water in a month. That's a good start. It's achievable. You can do it. But most importantly, if you have no water tomorrow and you don't go for a walk for a month, don't beat yourself up. Because the minute you start going, oh, dang it, I should have done that, I should have done that, I should have done that, you're never going to do it again. At least in my experience, I'll speak for myself. But so take little bites, little bits, and most importantly, celebrate those small wins. If your goal is to run I'm just using examples, a half marathon, and you only celebrate when you run that half marathon, what about that 6 months that led to it? What about your first run? What about the day you hit 5 miles? The day you hit 10 when you never thought you could run 1? You got to celebrate all of those. You got to celebrate drinking 1 glass of water tomorrow if that was your goal. I'm going to argue you might want to try and shoot a little higher the next day, but I'm still going to celebrate with you if you tell me it was the first day you've had a glass of water in a month. We need to do that for each other. And we just like stop
I
holding.
don't know when it'll be over. It's supposed to last till 8:30, but
What was that? Okay. Well, anyways, I forgot where I was going, but
Just the fact that we
be
need,
nicer,
support each other.
Got to be nicer. It starts with being nicer to ourselves though first, because the more it's not weird, right? I think we've come to a conclusion that punishment doesn't work very well. I mean, we can argue if you want to, but punishment really doesn't work. Neither does it for ourselves. If you reward yourself, if you go, I did a really good job with that, you're more likely to do it again in the future. If you say, I didn't do that, you're going to forget that you did some of it and you're gonna be a lot less likely to do it. We gotta be nicer to ourselves, nicer to each other, and just cheer for yourself, cheer for everybody else, and hold each other accountable, right, Ray?
Absolutely.
I say that because we do that at work a lot. So one thing quick, a few quick thoughts on therapy. I know somebody brought it up earlier, and I know that Kathy and I had talked about it. These are my thoughts. These are not like NAMI general recommendations. I always recommend going to psychology.com. And just starting from the beginning and going for what you're looking for. If it's anxiety, depression, bipolar, find someone you like and start calling. I think a lot of people go through like the big names here in town and then kind of stop when they call the big names and say that they have nothing available for 6 months. If you keep calling, I've had a lot better luck with independent therapists, a lot better luck with independent offices and individual therapists. I don't know if it's because they're less known, so there's less people that call them every single day, but also I've really enjoyed being able to like interview my therapist, which you can't do at the bigger places a lot of times. They kind of schedule for you. When you there's nothing quite like for me getting the therapist on the phone and being able to be like, do you know anything about bipolar disorder? I'll know. Kind of like what I was saying earlier. No, my current therapist said, no, absolutely not. I hired her on the spot because she could help with trauma and she was honest. You know what I mean? There's no one here in town who knows anything about bipolar disorder, so we can talk about that some other day. But always go for 3 sessions, be completely honest, and do the work. If you don't do those 3 things, it's probably on you, it's probably not your therapist. No one really wants to hear that because you think you go to therapy and they're going to help, and it's not. Most of the work is what you do with their information, with their guidance, with their leadership, with their observations. But in order for them to be able to be observant and help, you have to be honest. If you hold back any of the truth, you're withholding it from yourself, but they're not going to be able to, to correctly diagnose if that's what you're going in for, or put you on the right training for recovery plan. Basically, essentially. I won't say that. I won't say that. Ray's shaking her head at me. I'm going to leave these up here real quick. I love these. AI is a really weird, funny thing. This is the only time I've ever used AI and used it in public was for this. You can figure out how my brain works. It's a little different. I love this though. This is progress. This is legitimately progress. I put in there, I said, give me a bar graph that goes up and down and up and down and up and down. But overall, it goes up. That's progress. It's no different in life. You can be riding high and other parts of your life suck. That can just be true. And then it can get real bad again. I understand that. But overall, when you look back, when I look back a year ago, when I look back 6 months ago, when I look back 3 months ago, I'm still capable of more today than I was. I still have a stronger group around me. I might not be doing as well as I was a few months ago personally. But when I look around, everything around me and my actual life is going on the same trajectory. So I thought those are fun. I thought they were cool. And then lastly, before we can finish on questions, self-care is the hard things. It is eating healthy, even when you go to Darwin's yesterday and eat too many cinnamon rolls. But then you got to come back and bounce back. It's getting outside. Nature is the best thing for me. It's friends. It's going to therapy. It's being present. And that's a really lame saying and statement if you kind of just use it at that. But it's not when you think about present as like actually going for a walk through the woods and not being like me and just trying to get as far as you can, as quickly as you can, to say that I went for a walk in the woods. I sat down on a park bench for the first time in my life this year. It was actually really nice. What do you know? You can actually sit on those benches that they put there and you can just sit in peace. And it's peaceful. I had no idea. That's what I mean, and be there with your family. If you're going to therapy, be there, put that best step forward in each time. And we're going to make mistakes. A lot of them. If you're anything like me, even more. You'll bounce back. Just don't beat yourself up, put yourself out there, be vulnerable, and go from there. Oh, it told me one last time. There's some QR codes. There's not too many people in here. I can pass along anything you want, Kathy. Let me know, but donations always help. There's a survey there. If you'd like to critique me, please do. Feel free. You can be mean even. It's really okay. And volunteering, Ray will reach out to you. It's to help out or to welcome you to the NAMI team. Questions?
Please use the mic, then it comes up to recording. No, I don't have any.
Thank you so much. We have a room in our church. It's the welcoming room. It's called the narthex.
Mhm.
We're a busy church. We're a community-related church. We're a supportive church. We encourage one another. But that room is an interesting one because we engage each other and we ask, how are ya? How are you today? And the universal response is, I'm okay. I'm okay. There's a song about it. I'm okay, but I'm really not. I just know that I love you for asking me, but I know you don't have time. At church, we could go out to another hallway, and sometimes we do. I am a Stephen minister. We have one-on-one in our church. We walk. We're available to walk with and be there. I really appreciate how you talked about the one-on-one, the peer relationships. We try.
What we can do.
That's all we can do because we cannot fix. We are a faith community. And we know that God can do so much more than we can even imagine. And he gives us more than that. Because he brought you here. You make it so real. We thank you
Absolutely.
so much for
Okay.
your beautiful person that you are and bringing yourself to us.
And for sharing.
Thanks for having me. That's important. We can't be here without being asked. And so we appreciate it too, because that's why I say, there's not a time, but it starts. We're happy to come out and do every single time. And because that's where it starts. These are the rooms where it starts. And because you'll take that and, maybe somebody else invites us to another church or another event, or maybe somebody has a group that they're working with. And that's the idea. And it just spreads the message that we care about, the mission of talking about mental health, the mission of eliminating the stigma, and the more people we can get our services in the hands of, the happier we are, and the better off we all are. So thank you, appreciate you and for what you do. And I would say one thing, I try not to ever, I screw up sometimes, but I usually don't ask, how are you?
Yeah.
I usually try not to. I usually go, what do I ask, Ray? Hanging in there? Hanging in there? You hanging in there? And when people ask me, I usually answer, I'm hanging in there. Because I hate saying good, because I'm rarely great. I'm rarely just good. I usually have something to say. So hanging in there is just more accurate. And I think and it takes the pressure off the other person. I have found that too. If I say, oh, I'm hanging in there with that tone, look, Kendra at our board meeting where we just came from, she said, good. And she asked me how is it? I was like, hanging in there. She goes, actually, yeah, you're right. Kind of more like that. It opens the door.
Right. One thing we talked about here in the church, and as Bobby said, we have so many opportunities to support each other, but we've had a lot of discussions lately about how it's so easy to say to someone, even the greeters in the morning, how are you? And there isn't always time to really tell them. And how many times do you run into people that are friends or acquaintances that'll say, how are you? And they just keep walking and you don't even have an opportunity to say anything. It's obvious that they don't have the time or the comfort level. I tend to think it's more, they're not comfortable with what you might say to them. Because then they have to be responsible to talk to you. But we've talked a lot about that and just trying to reach out to people and really meet them where they are, because that's risky. It isn't always a safe feeling. It makes us vulnerable too, but it's so important.
Yeah, I guess I'll put it in a different way from a non-normal human. It makes me feel super welcome. It makes people like us feel super welcome when you show us the time. If you're willing to get uncomfortable and come into my world, you will be my friend forever. Because it's an uncomfortable world. It's kind of a scary world sometimes. I mean, if I'm being, if Ray's asked me at work, how are you? And there's been days I'm like, really not well. That's kind of a lot to ask of Ray then to take that from me too. It goes back and forth. So I'm appreciative of her and other people like her I have in my life. But that's the reality of it, is that when you give them that time, when you give them that piece of yourself, you're changing a life. Like, there's no other way of putting it. If you can be that person who can be uncomfortable, so many people want to be comfortable. If you can be the person willing to be uncomfortable for someone else, you will change their life and possibly save it depending on where they're at, but you will change your life. Because so many people don't want to hear I'm not doing well. They don't. It's easier to keep moving. Most people don't want to hear, actually, I'm having a really bad day, I'm super depressed, and we'll see how tomorrow goes. They're gonna be like, okay. But the people who give me that time, who give people like me that time, I have a lot to offer. Ray has a lot to offer. People like us have a lot to offer. It's just that sometimes it takes more time and more patience and more people for it to get them, out of us and for us to feel comfortable. So if you can do that, if you can get uncomfortable for someone else, that's the most important thing.
Well, I'd add one more word to your name
Please.
tag, and that's brave. Brave one. Because to do what you're doing, given your situation, and put yourself out there to a room full of strangers, and also educate us in the process. You're a very brave person.
Thank you.
And I admire you for that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Anybody on the screen have any questions?
Is there any questions on here or comments? Can Chat?
Should be able to hear you, okay?
I see nothing in the chat. You can feel free to come off of mute.
Darlene, Miriam, Patricia, any questions or comments you have for Lee? Can you hear us okay? You're on mute. That's probably why we're not getting an answer. Pat was having some trouble with her mute button, so Any other comments here? One of the things we need feedback on, if we could have, is that I had talked with Lee, we're going to have a few topics this next few months on mental health. And as you know, we've had a member of the congregation who has some colleagues who've been planning to come and haven't been able to as yet. But I asked Lee if there might be some other areas that NAMI could present something. So if we get some ideas from folks as to what you'd further like to talk about, we could maybe have another session. Because we meet each month. And we appreciate you both being here. Ray coming with you, and it's just been a wonderful discussion. Our next meeting is slated for, I guess I should stand here so they wonder why I'm talking. Thank you so much. Our next meeting is slated for February 10th. And we don't, as I said, yet have a speaker. We want to do another topic on mental health, mental illness. And so we would really appreciate people can call in or leave messages so we know what the interests are. But any more comments or questions regarding today? Any of you gals? This was wonderful, and we thank you so much. We thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Why don't we just end as a group with the Lord's Prayer, if that's okay? We usually end with a prayer. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory forever and ever. Amen. And once again, we're most grateful for both of you coming. We'll give you a round of applause here. I know we can't hear those of you on the screen, but thanks so much. And thank you for joining us, and we'll see you in February.
Yeah.